Keep Nintendo weird, everybody. Your boy Seth here. Happy and thrilled as always to bring you another episode of the Weird Nintendo podcast about loving weird Nintendo games. And I do apologize in advance if you're watching the video version. My hair looks a little bit crazy. I just got out of the shower. When I step out of the shower, it's not a good situation for anybody involved. So bear with me. Guys, do you have a quick moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Rhythm Heaven? Because I have been wanting to do a Rhythm Heaven episode on this show since the very beginning. It's been basically at the top of the list because, I mean, you take one look at the Keep Nintendo Weird key art, and it's immediately obvious how important Rhythm Heaven is to me and how important Rhythm Heaven is to the DNA of the show. Rhythm Heaven has been there from the beginning. I mean, the Keep Nintendo Weird logo is basically a Rhythm Heaven parody. I mean, it's like, it's bad. Very important series to me, and it was important that I got the right guest for this episode, and I gotta be real with you guys, you know, sometimes getting a guest is really hard, sometimes meeting somebody with like an equal passion or just like a deep understanding and love of the game in question is difficult to track down, but this one wasn't. So Kevin Fagaragan is a illustrator, been on the internet for a long time. I've been a fan of his for a long time. And it really perked my ear up for this episode because he was the curator and involved with the Rhythm Heaven Reanimated project. And if you take one look at that project, it is so obvious how much passion is in it. And come to find out, like, not long after I launched Keep Nintendo Weird, he followed my the Keep Nintendo Weird Twitter account on Twitter, and I was like, oh wow, I should reach out to this guy. And then, you know, so when it came time to do this episode, I reached out to him, and he revealed to me that he had never done a podcast before, which was wild to me considering, again, this is a, you know, prolific guy on the internet. You know, he's never been invited on a podcast before, so this is actually going to be Kevin's podcast debut, and he did a great job. I mean, Kevin and I just gush about Rhythm Heaven for like almost an hour, and like he and I both agreed after the mic stopped rolling that we could have done it all night long. I mean, this is just this is quintessential K&W. This was just like a total gush fest. So much fun to make with Kevin. And by the way, as we're talking, Kevin was like, hey, would it be cool if I doodled as we talked? And we couldn't get Discord to cooperate, but we were actually thinking about, for the video version of the podcast, to have it just be like the screen of Kevin drawing as we were talking. And he actually explained to me, he's like, you know, I actually, it helps me concentrate to talk while I'm doodling and stuff. So I was like, well, it's a bummer we couldn't get the Discord thing to work, but if you want to doodle, you know, while we're talking, by all means, you know. And so not only did he, that's actually the art that you see in the episode art, is what Kevin was doodling as we were talking. So really, really cool, really gracious and cool of him to do that. And so much fun. I mean, I think that alone just illustrates the passion. So we didn't live stream this one for scheduling reasons, and it just didn't quite work out that way. And then in addition to that, Kevin does not appear on camera, but we are going to, as always, supplement this video version of the podcast with some video footage. I think I'm going to do Rhythm Heaven Fever video footage, courtesy, as always, of Long Play Archive. Full credit to them. Links to them in the episode description on YouTube. So full credit to them for providing the supplemental footage you're going to see for the video version of this episode. So huge thanks, as always, to our friends at Long Play Archive. Yeah, I mean, this is a good one, guys. This is a good one, and it was good to cover it now, because, again, we are leading up to the eShop closures, of course, and which makes me sad, because Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, which is, you know, kind of the more recent and the most accessible game in the series, is an eShop exclusive, at least here in North America. So very soon, you're not going to be able to play it, and then getting physicals of the older games is not super easy either. So it's just a little bit of a bummer, but that's why I wanted to cover it now, because right now you do still have the opportunity to go onto the eShop and buy Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, and we obviously have a lot to say about the franchise, and we hope it returns. But this is a special one, guys. This is one I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm so thrilled to finally be doing it. So here it is. I'm not going to ramble any further. We're going to welcome Kevin to the show. We are going to gush, just absolutely gush, about all things Rhythm Heaven, all things that make this series special and the fans special. And we're going to welcome Kevin to the show. And as always, we're going to keep Nintendo weird. All right, folks, I am so thrilled to be sitting here tonight with Kevin Fagaragan, somebody who I've been a fan of for a long, long time. And I can't, somehow, this is like, I guess your first podcast appearance. That's weird to me, Kevin.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I just, when you told me that, I was like, that's wild to me, because I feel like you've been on the internet for a long time in a somewhat, public, kind of a public face a little bit. Your art, anyway, I think is very kind of well known at this point. You obviously were part of the Rhythm Heaven Reanimated project, which I definitely want to talk about. I think I own your artwork on about like 10 shirts. So I just feel like you're a pretty well known quantity. So when you told me that, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little bit mind blown. I am happy to be kind of your first foray into the podcasting world. So. Well, yeah. So happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited. To talk about, Rhythm Heaven tonight. So
I imagine you know a thing or two about Rhythm Heaven, Kevin.
Maybe a little bit.
So before we get into it, Kevin, if you would, just kind of set the stage for us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what people might know you for. As I mentioned, you're an illustrator, of course, but where might people know you?
Well, hi, I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
So you may know me. I make shirts for, I design shirts over at the Yeti.com. You might see a couple of my shirts go on sale every once in a while. Yeah. And, for the past few years, I've been the thumbnail artist for Ant Dude and, a couple other YouTubers. I've done stuff for them as well, but that's all I can think of right now. I mean, I draw, and people like my art, so
that's the big thing. Yeah. Can you? I've always been curious how that kind of, I don't know if you've ever talked about this publicly or not, but how did that kind of come to be, the Ant Dude connection? Like how did you guys link up?
Okay, so I guess I could start with the beginning really quick. Like fresh out of college, I went to art school in Chicago, and trying to look for stuff to do, and I found the Yeti.com to be one of those websites to be like, hey, submit your art, we'll sell it for a day, and I was kind of, what's the word, like, yeah, I kind of stuck with them for a while, and they eventually hired me on to be a in-house artist. But I
was gonna say they're based in Illinois, yeah. Right? In Aurora,
yeah.
Right?
It was so weird because they sent me a letter. They sent me a letter one day with my one of my free shirts, because every artist get like 3 shirts or something.
Okay,
but sent me a letter saying, "Oh, hey neighbor," and I'm like, "Oh." Give me a job or something, and then here we are. So
how cool.
Yeah, and through that, I guess my shirts have been, I don't want to say popular, I don't like saying that, but like people get them, and then they start recognizing the artists behind like the different shirts. They recognize the style, and one of them happened to be Ant Dude, who commissioned me to do his like a change for his profile picture, and ever since then he was just like, oh yeah, it'd be kind of cool if we worked together, did a different thumbnail art, like changing the thumbnail art like for each video instead of just like one static photo.
That sounds easy. That sounds easy to do every single time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I know how to draw him now, and it's sometimes my art style could be like some people might think like, oh shoot, that looks like the Antu style. I'm just like, no, it's my style. But
How would you describe your own style? Kind of what are some of like your inspirations? I'm kind of curious what you would consider to be the Kevin Fagaragan style.
Okay, so one of the biggest influences for me is the Crash Bandicoot series.
Sure, yeah.
That was my first intro to video games, the very first game, and I just loved how like wacky and cartoony those characters were, and I have boxes and boxes at my parents' house of my drawings from back then. But other influences also would be like the Bone graphic novels by
sure.
Jeff Smith.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, I don't know if you heard about the news where the Netflix show got canceled.
I saw that. Oh, heartbreaking.
It hurts. It burns. But I really like Jeff Smith's work, and man, there's just so much. Like I consider Kirby and WarioWare some of my inspirations as well. Oh, and maybe like the Rubber Hose era of cartoons too.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool. Yeah, it's definitely a recognizable art style, which is cool. Like your art doesn't look like to me, it doesn't look like anybody else's, and you can immediately pick up when you see Kevin Fagaragan art, you can tell that it's yours. You know, like I said, my wife and I have a bunch of shirts that have your art on it, particularly Crash Bandicoot. She's also a massive Crash Bandicoot fan, so
awesome.
That'll be cool. Like, hey, you know the guy that did the art for that shirt you love to wear all the time. I've had him on my show. So yeah, it's so anyway, just a big fan, longtime fan. Obviously, the Ant Dude stuff is huge, but. One of the things that kind of really made my ears perk up as I'm looking for a guest to talk about Rhythm Heaven is your involvement with this Rhythm Heaven reanimated project. Kind of tell me a little bit about that. How did that come to be, and how'd you get involved with that?
So, I'm the curator of that project. Mm-hmm. Actually, both projects. There's two Rhythm Heaven reanimated projects there, but previously I was one of the animators for the Kirby reanimated project on YouTube, and I thought about it. It's like a lot of these reanimated projects are based on existing TV shows. So they would take like the audio. They would take the audio from the show episode or whatever, and just kind of play it out. Like put the audio there, and then each shot a different animator would like claim that, work it in their own style, and then like when it's mushed together, it's like this beautiful mess.
Yes,
it's this beautiful mess. But it works because like there's like one cohesive idea from like it's like, hey, this is the SpongeBob reanimated. It's focused on SpongeBob. These are like all different types of people's like take on SpongeBob, and sometimes they could be a little memey here and there, but that's what I say. It's a beautiful mess. But with that, I thought, it'd be really cool if I did like, what if we did a Rhythm Heaven one? And like Rhythm Heaven is very, what's the word? It's just very. It's like like you're watching a movie, you're playing a movie, or playing a game or something. So it's like point A, point B, it's done. And I thought, okay, it'd be really cool. What if I took one of the remixes, and then instead of each shot, each minigame is done by a different animator. So initially I wanted to do just like, the famous Remix 10 from Rhythm Heaven Fever.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, what if I added the Game Boy Advance game? What if I added the DS game? and then and then I ended up adding every single final remix from that, and man, I just loved Rhythm Heaven so much that I'm like, this would be perfect, you know?
Yeah.
Just to have a nonstop thing with different animators. But that was like basically where the idea came from. It was like inspired from that, and then the idea just kept growing and growing.
It's so much fun to watch too. Like there's so much clear passion and energy behind that video. It's like those Rhythm Heaven reanimated videos are some of my favorites. I love the Karate Man one in particular. It's so fun where like every punch is a different artist. Oh, it's so good. So good. You all did a phenomenal job with that.
Thank you. Everyone did a fantastic job in that project.
Oh, yeah.
Both projects.
Yeah, so cool. So cool to see. And that was really what kind of made me, I'm like, okay, this is the person I have to get on Keep Nintendo Weird to talk Rhythm Heaven. Because Rhythm Heaven is, I mean, this is a really special series to me. And, you know, I definitely, you know, recognize the passion and the clear love you have for Rhythm Heaven. I really enjoyed seeing some of the tweets you put out of like some of the kind of obscure Rhythm Heaven merch that you've collected over the years and stuff.
Man.
And it's so good. That stuff just like speaks to my soul. So kind of set the stage for us a little bit, Kevin. How were you first introduced to Rhythm Heaven and kind of what's your journey been like with the series?
So it's a really strange one.
Okay.
Which is really fitting because this is a strange series. So, as you know, the Game Boy Advance game never came out in America, so I never heard about it. The first time I've heard of Rhythm Heaven, the DS game, was through that demo thing. Like, I think there was like a Wii download demo where you could download DS games, and then like you get like a little sampler,
right,
of like what that game is. So I downloaded it, and I'm like, what the heck is this game? I don't like this. so yeah, I saw the I think the demo only had 3 games. It only had Built to Scale, which I thought was cool at the time, and then I could not get the Chorus Kids down. I could not.
It's kind of tricky. Yeah, it's kind of tricky when you first start. Yeah.
And so I put that down. I'm like, whatever. And then I didn't get back into the series until Rhythm Heaven Fever, because I love WarioWare.
Yes.
WarioWare is one of my favorite Nintendo series of all time. It's just wacky. You know, like I've been a fan since like the first game, like the Game Boy, and then like up to the Wii. And I guess like Ko Takeuchi's like art style actually, you know, like it's recognizable from the WarioWare games.
Definitely.
So when I picked up Fever, I saw that like, wow, this looks like WarioWare, and I, you know, this sparked my interest. And I remember when the game was about to come out, I spent like at least an hour at a GameStop, like playing through like this display demo. Which I think was just the whole game, like on display, and then I just ended up bulldozing through like a bunch of levels, and I'm like, I need to pick this game up. This game is great, but I don't know why it didn't click with me like with the DS, but I think after recognizing that it was the same people that made WarioWare, that's it. I'm like, I'm in love with this series.
Yeah, it's so funny, not only funny but serendipitous that you mentioned GameStop. So people who listen to my stuff know that I worked at GameStop for about 7.5 years. And Rhythm Heaven Fever was a game that they may have had, because that game came out actually about like around the time that I was like kind of winding down my time at GameStop. I don't remember if we had like a demo disc or anything like that for it, but what I do remember is Rhythm Heaven Fever was my go-to whenever somebody would trade in a Wii and I had to test it. It was always Rhythm Heaven Fever, because you could get into it so quickly and you could test it really efficiently, you know, and make sure the buttons work, make sure the motion controls work and stuff like that with the Wii remote very quickly and efficiently. That was my go-to Wii test game, to the point where and this may have been the case at your GameStop too, to the point where I straight up just threw a used copy of Rhythm Heaven Fever that we had, because this is the Wii era. There was like 1 million copies of everything. And I just threw that there in our Wii kiosk. I mean, it was just a functional Wii that had the full game of Rhythm Heaven Fever in there. And I would just, like, whenever there weren't customers in there, I would just, like, play Rhythm Heaven just on the Wii kiosk. But my first introduction to it, of course, was also the DS game. For me, and again, I'm working at GameStop at the time this comes out. That first game came out in, I think, 2009. The DS one anyway, not the GBA one that was Japan only.
Yes.
I have a weird story about that later too, actually. But I just remember, I think I just bought it kind of sight unseen because I really liked the cover art. It kind of has the Rhythm Heaven logo, which, by the way, if anybody's seen, the Keep Nintendo Weird logo is very directly parodying the Rhythm Heaven logo. There's Rhythm Heaven DNA all over this show, for sure. And I just remember seeing that, just being so taken with that kind of, it almost has this like 60s psychedelic look to it, even though that isn't really what the game is like. The game itself is very Japanese, but like for some reason the art style and the logo in particular really stuck out to me as being this like 60s psychedelic thing, that I think that's why I bought it, and I fell in love just like immediately with that DS game. So
the cover is very simple. It's very simple, especially like the if you look at the Japanese versions of all the covers, it's usually just the logo,
right?
And like occasionally maybe 1 or 2 characters on the front. Because like I have the Japanese copy of Rhythm Heaven or Rhythm Tengoku Gold for the DS, and instead of 3 chorus kids and the conductor, it's only 1. Yeah. It's like, okay, what is this game about? Like,
So it was Rhythm Tengoku Gold for the DS one. Are you familiar with Rhythm Heaven Silver?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
I figured you would be. So Rhythm Heaven Silver, for those who don't know, I've talked about this actually on my main podcast, All In, before. It is a fan translation, an English fan translation of the first game. So for the first game for GBA. So what wound up happening with me was I just became obsessed. I have this, it's a personality quirk. If I fall in love with the series, I fall hard. So when I fell in love with Rhythm Heaven, it's like I've got the DS one, I've got the Wii one. So it became this like cyclical thing where I hated, mind you, this is before Megamix came out. So there are some games on that GBA version that were otherwise unplayable, really, on the other versions of the game. So it killed me knowing that there was Rhythm Heaven that I hadn't experienced. So I imported Rhythm Tengoku. I think I paid $20 or something like that. And actually, if there's ever going to be a series that you can kind of get away with playing not knowing Japanese, it probably is Rhythm Heaven, because it's so simple. You can kind of fake your way through it a little bit as long as you have timing, and it's one button control usually for the most part. And so it's, you kind of get your way through that. But then years later, I learned about Rhythm Heaven Silver and was able to play it that way, and like learned how to, get the ROM and patch the English translation in, just weird junk. I've never done that for any other series other than Rhythm Heaven. Like, it just has this way, doesn't it? This way of just kind of like digging its way into your brain, and it makes you do things that you wouldn't do otherwise. It has, I don't know, I feel so connected to it.
I feel you, because when Megamix came out, or was announced for Japan, I bought a Japanese 3DS immediately.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's how dedicated
yes.
Because I think from high school to college, that's when I played the Rhythm Heaven Fever, then DS, then I don't know if I had a physical cartridge of the game yet. I think I emulated what's it called? Tengoku. I emulated Tengoku and played it on my phone, which, please don't do that, because the sync is awful.
I was going to say, these are like famously hard games to emulate. It's been, up until recently, it's been pretty hard to emulate.
Exactly, especially for a music game,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I swear I pressed it at the right time, and it's
Yeah.
you know. But yes, I actually I bought a Japanese 3DS, and I downloaded it as soon as the game went live, and
Oh
then
man.
and you know what? Like Megamix had a story mode, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of slowed down like my experience a little bit because I'm like, oh shoot, there's something going on, but I can't read. I need to like use like Google Translate or something to like
Yes.
for every line.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That's what Rhythm Heaven does to us, man. Like just you have to you've got to play it. You've got to see like if there is new Rhythm Heaven, I have to consume it. You know. There's just something to that. I'll never forget when Rhythm Heaven Megamix was announced for the States, it was like shadow dropped. Like
Yeah.
it was like during a Nintendo Treehouse. Like it wasn't even part of the proper E3 presentation. It was just in the treehouse. Like, oh, by the way, here's Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, and it's like basically a remix game that has like all this stuff, even stuff dating back to Rhythm Tengoku, completely like remastered for the 3DS. And by the way, it's got a story. I'm like, what? Like, why is this not a premiere announcement in the main
Yeah.
E3?
It was interesting because at the time it was just Breath of the Wild they were showcasing,
Right.
right? It was like, oh hey, Breath of the Wild, but also
Right.
it's yeah, hey, Rhythm Heaven's out right now. It's like, huh?
It was bonkers.
Yeah.
Absolutely bonkers to me. And one of the reasons I want to talk about the series now, I think I was telling you about this when I first reached out to you, and when it relates to Megamix in particular, especially here in North America, that's an eShop only game, and
Yes.
you once those eShops close, you're not going to have a way to play it. And I am curious where Megamix ranks for you. I really love Megamix, and it's probably for me the most accessible. Like if I'm going to pick up a Rhythm Heaven game today, it's probably going to be Megamix. And it just kind of breaks my heart knowing that when the eShops close, people are not going to be able to play Megamix anymore, or go and
Yeah.
buy new copies of Megamix on the eShop.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure. Like you said, like it's probably the most accessible version of the Rhythm Heaven, like any Rhythm Heaven game, because they put a lot into it to make it like, yeah, like you said, accessible. Because like they have better ways of teaching you how to play the game. It's a little more clear,
yeah.
and it has a bunch of the best. It's a great compilation with more.
Yeah, it's the greatest hits basically, and it's a little bit deeper than past Rhythm Heaven games and stuff. And it doesn't have like some of the control complexity of something like a Rhythm Heaven Fever or whatever. But I don't think that's really what the spirit of
Oh
the
yeah,
game is.
yeah, I agree.
The spirit of the game is about that simplicity, especially like I said, for a lot of these, especially the button based ones, you play with a single button. But the thing with Rhythm Heaven that makes it, I think, really unique compared to other rhythm games is the skill ceiling is really high. And like what I mean by that is I can give my little brother or my nephew or something a Rhythm Heaven game and they could get their way through it with a basic kind of understanding of what's going on. Some of the games are harder than others, but at the same time, if you really want to master Rhythm Heaven, it can be, if you want to get those perfect, scores, it can get pretty, precise with the timing.
Oh,
you know?
very, very.
Very particular with the timing there. I really love that about Rhythm Heaven. That really kind of makes it stand out, I think, because a lot of games are either just like you either hit the note or you don't, and maybe there's like a good versus a perfect or something. But Rhythm Heaven really has a wide ocean of the way you can succeed at that game, which I really like.
Yeah, and even if you don't do well, like there's a whole system that the games have where it's like, hey, it's okay. You can do this next time.
Right.
Just it's very welcoming, even if it gets tough.
Yeah, it does a really good job of like, and in fact, you could argue that it's kind of like beneficial to fail in some cases. I think about the one of my favorite mini games. We definitely have to talk about some of our favorite games, but one of my favorite mini games is the Rap Men mini game, and I love failing at that game because I love seeing their reactions. Like by the end of it, they're just sullen and crying and like just, you're like almost rewarded for failing with these like funny little vignettes that you get.
Oh yeah.
It's not like you don't feel like a total failure because at least you're seeing something funny.
Exactly, because like if you get a superb all the time, you kind of just get the like, oh, cool. But some mini games like have like a continuing story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll use Double Date as a good example because, like one of them, like if you fail, yeah, I think she says like, maybe next time, or like,
right.
It's like, oh no. But yeah, I think some of them like kind of have like a kind of, it's like, hey, here's a secret surprise, like here's a cameo of a character from a different game, or
yes,
like with the cameos and stuff, and like characters appearing like in multiple mini games. It just, like at the surface, it looks like, oh yeah, these could be just random mini games. But then when you get like the remixes involved and cameos involved, like it's like, wow, actually, like all these random things do go together.
Yeah. So the future of Rhythm Heaven is a little bit murky, and I would kind of like to pick your brain about this because
okay.
The kind of, I guess, I don't want to call him the father of Rhythm Heaven, I guess, but I think it's Sunku, I believe, is the way you pronounce his name. Sunku is kind of like the conceptual like producer, the composer. He's actually quite famous in Japan for his music career. He's been in rock bands, he's a record producer, he's a vocalist, and then sadly, many years ago now, he came down with throat cancer. And so it's actually a little bit unclear what the future of Rhythm Heaven is now with, in this sort of post-Mega Mix world. It's like kind of, where are we going to go from here? And I'm kind of curious how you're feeling about that. I mean, do you feel like Rhythm Heaven has a shot of coming back on Switch potentially? If Sunku's not going to be involved in a real way anymore, do you feel like there's still a chance for Rhythm Heaven to sort of come back?
I'm staying optimistic.
Yeah.
Because like I think there could be like many different ways like Rhythm Heaven could come back. Like my realistic thoughts is maybe they could do like an enhanced Mega Mix or something like that and just put that on the Switch. But Sunku has like come out and responded to some fans saying like he would love to do like a Rhythm Heaven on Switch. And he made like a few tweets here and there, and he still loves the series. He kind of did like respond to some of our Rhythm Reanimated stuff too.
Oh, really? Cool. That's cool. Yeah, what do you say about that?
He loved it. He shared it.
That's awesome.
He shared it and stuff. So like there's still love there, even though like he can't sing anymore.
Yeah.
Like he's still very involved with music production, even if it's behind everything, So, and I think that could still be the same with Rhythm, like a future Rhythm Heaven game. He could still do it on the back. Unfortunately, maybe no longer give us like vocal songs anymore.
Right.
But I still think it's possible.
Yeah, I would like to see, especially since we got a new WarioWare on Switch, which I did not expect was going to happen. Yeah, I was like kind of predicting it and like acting like I felt like it was going to happen or whatever, but I had no clue that we were going to get a new WarioWare game on. It
felt so soon.
Yeah,
it felt so soon after like I felt like Gold just came out like maybe just a few years ago.
Yeah, it was weird because I feel like everybody forgets about Gold. I feel like people like there was already dust on everybody's 3DS by the time Gold came out or something, and Gold's like a great game, and and so it's really weird that, yeah, like for us, it was kind of still very much like recent. I feel in my heart, I feel like Megamix is still pretty recent, but even though you look back on that now, that's like, 6 years ago now, but it's just the way these things crystallize in your head, I guess. One thing that I'm a little bit curious about is, because of the vibe I always got, I used to pour through these Iwata asks, and Iwata did the late, of course, Nintendo president Satoru Iwata did an Iwata ask with Sunku at one point, and I just remember getting this vibe from Iwata. Like, Iwata seemed like he was really the champion of some of these kind of like weirder franchises, these kind of like, we can afford to kind of like take a bite necessarily. These games may not come out and sell, 100 million units or whatever, but they're really unique and artistically, resonant games that mean a lot to the fan base. And maybe it's okay that we don't make millions and millions of dollars off of them because people really enjoy them. I kind of felt like Iwata was kind of like a champion of that, and I do worry, and I hope this isn't true, but I do worry that without him there to champion these games at the higher level, and now that especially, Reggie's gone and stuff, and, it makes me fearful that these kind of lesser known or weird Nintendo franchises may not be championed the same way they used to be. But like you said, I try to stay optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best thing we could do right now. But hey, we might have some surprises here and there. Like you said, like, we didn't expect another WarioWare to come out so soon, or I honestly never thought like we would get like Famicom Detective Club or something like that. It's like, that's strange to me.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing, like, Nintendo will surprise us from time to time, so you never know. There was a game that came out on the Switch eShop that was very Rhythm Heaven. It came out like recently, and that was something that I was always kind of like thinking in the back of my mind is like, okay, how come people aren't doing more like Rhythm Heaven clones? Like, how come there aren't more of these? It was this game that came out like months ago called, I need to look this up.
Are you thinking of Timing Go?
Timing Go. Yes, Timing Go.
Okay. I was actually I was kind of overhyped on that game.
Oh, it's not like amazing, but
it's not great, but
yeah,
it's like, it felt like it was literally like Rhythm Hell, which is really funny.
Yes, that's true, actually. Yes,
yeah. But I felt like playing that game. It felt very like I probably needed to play. I needed to play Rhythm Heaven beforehand to actually start understanding this game,
right?
Because that was my big gripe with that game, was it didn't really teach you much.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But I remember when I played that when it came out. That came out back in last November, it looks like.
Yes.
And when it came out, I played it, and I'm like, all right, this is like fine or whatever. But it struck me, I'm like, why is this like the first time I've played like a Rhythm Heaven clone? Why, so many other, I mean, there's things like Rhythm Doctor and stuff like that, which are similar. But it is surprising to me, a lot of times you see independent studios kind of take that Thanos, fine, I'll do it myself approach, when new games aren't coming out in series that they love. And I'm just a little bit surprised that Timing Go, of all things, is the first Rhythm Heaven knockoff. Rhythm Hell, I love that. That's exactly what it is. That's so funny. I never thought of that.
I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen this other game that's been... It's not out yet, but I think some concepts or demos were like shared. But there's a game called the Bits and Bops that has a very similar vibe to Rhythm Heaven.
Okay.
It's not out yet, but if you ever get a chance, that game, like that, it looks very, very promising to me.
Cool. Is that coming to Switch?
Not sure yet.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah,
I think they're gonna do a Kickstarter in the future, but
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. But that was something that just struck me. I'm like, man, the indie game scene, you guys can fill this gap. There are diehard Rhythm Heaven fans. The people that did that English translation for Rhythm Heaven Silver, that's like one of my favorite things just in Nintendo, because like I love that these fans have done this loving fan translation. Like playing that translation, it literally they have taken the cadence that feels like a Nintendo in the GBA era. Like it feels totally true. It's just like a beautiful localization, and I look at that translation. I'm just like, this is such a great example of the passion behind the Rhythm Heaven community. You know,
And you know what's great about that that translation too is like they could have just just translated the instructions for the games,
right?
but there's a lot of reading material in there too,
Mm-hmm.
and they went all out and fully translated it,
It's really
which was
good.
really nice.
It's really nice too to be able to like dig into some of that stuff. I love that so much. Rhythm Heaven, I think, is just one of the, in terms of Nintendo, one of the most like passionate fan bases, very kind of like vocally passionate fan bases in Nintendo, which is funny because this is a rhythm game. This is not typically, outside of the realm of like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, this is not typically like the genre that has really passionate fans, and Rhythm Heaven does. I was curious, Kevin, to shout out some of your favorite Rhythm Heaven games, like not only just games in the series, but your favorite like mini games within the games. Some of your favorites.
Ooh, let's see where to begin.
I know it's a big question. I know.
It's funny. I have a giant poster that I designed right in front of my face with
Oh my
every
gosh.
mini game. So I'm like using that as a guide. Like, what's a good mini game?
I got them all laid out in front of me.
Yes. So this is perfect. God, it's really tough because there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
But like, can't go wrong with like games like the Karate Man.
Of course.
All of them. I think all of them are fantastic. Especially like such a simple idea, and then they just add something new like every time it reappears.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorites of all time has to be Air Rally.
Air
from the
Rally.
Wii.
Yes.
Like that one's such a good one. Like I wish there was like a sequel to it. I know they added a prequel mini game to
Right.
it, like in Mega Mix, but it doesn't hit as hard. But I think like Space Soccer is great. Like the ping pong one, Fruit Basket. It's just, oh god, there's so many good ones.
You know what? One of my favorites, and this is kind of like, it kind of falls in line with a typical kind of Rhythm Heaven. Rhythm Heaven almost has like these similar styles of minigame too, but my favorite sort of like call and repeat minigame is Fan Club.
Oh yes.
Oh my, I cannot hear I suppose in real life.
It's toxic. Yeah, you
Yes.
can't. Oh my god! Like anywhere, and you just can't help but clap.
Yes. Oh, my wife will just like randomly in just, normal conversation, we'll be out to dinner or something, and for whatever reason, she'll say, I suppose, and I just want to be like, I suppose, and like, it's just like, you have to do it. It's required.
Oh,
It's
yes.
required.
Yep, that's what this series does to you. It, like,
There is something infectious to it. Do you think that is because, I mean, we love the art of it, we love the vibes of it, we love the games themselves or whatever, but there is something about, like, you feel like you really get to know Rhythm Heaven. You get kind of connected to these characters. You get kind of just like, you feel like a tether, like one end of it is connected to you as a person and the other end of it goes into the screen and connects to the Rhythm Heaven universe. It feels like when I play a Rhythm Heaven game, it feels like I'm going home. And I know this sounds very hyperbolic, but I swear, like, that's how I feel with Rhythm Heaven. It feels like home to me,
It feels like home. Yeah, and like I think that goes back to what we were talking about, like how accessible the series is, and like sometimes like I'll just take my my 3DS and like go out and like let's wait on the train or something and then put it up. You're lost in the world for like an hour or two, or
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's such a nice feeling.
Nice, yeah. It feels nice. It feels warm. It feels like, it feels like putting your favorite hoodie back on. Like it just it feels very comforting to play Rhythm Heaven. What's your favorite game in the series if you had to pick one?
This is really hard.
It is hard. It's hard. They're all very different.
Like overall, right? Like overall, like okay. Well, it's really hard for me to choose because like I love Fever. I think I would say Fever because that's technically my first one.
Sure.
But like I think it has the best group of games.
I agree.
But then if I just want to tap, I'll play either the DS game or Mega Mix. And like I do play Mega Mix with like tap on because my button I wore down. Like I played Mega Mix so much that I wore down the A button.
Oh wow.
So I can only do tap now on that game. But like I'll occasionally find myself like even playing like the original like Game Boy Advance game, and I'm kind of spoiled, but like the Yeti has an arcade, and for a while like they had Rhythm Tengoku's arcade game.
No,
and
that's awesome.
Like they had it, and even my mall had it at their Round 1 arcade, and I'm just like, wow, I have 2 locations where I could play this game. But I ended up actually owning. I own the the arcade game, not like the full cabinet.
Yeah.
But I have like a modified I have the board, but I have like this modified plug and play thing. So I guess if I want to play on a TV, it's like, there you go.
That's awesome. How cool is that, man? You really were the perfect person to have on this episode, Kevin. I've never played the arcade one. The arcade one is like, it's essentially Rhythm Tengoku, but it's like 2-player, isn't it? Yes.
It was developed by Sega out of all people, which is surprising.
Whoa,
but
yeah.
But yeah, it's basically an arcade version of Rhythm Tengoku, but they added some co-op. So like kind of like Rhythm Heaven Fever's co-op.
Right.
But yeah, a bunch of mini games. Like either they'll like do split screen Karate Man or something like that, or like sometimes you'll do like Tap Trial, and then there's 2 girls instead of like 2 monkeys, and it's very unique. But what's really unique about this version is that they have a exclusive set of mini games, which are basically just like tempoed up versions of the first row of mini games from Tengoku. So like,
okay,
like Karate Man, the Rhythm Tweezers, the Up the Clappy Trio, and like all that, except like they're just like techno-y and faster, and then like top it off with like a remix, a tempoed up remix, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen footage and gameplay and stuff of the arcade, but I've never actually been able to play it myself. That's so cool. Gun to my head, my favorite is probably also Fever, mostly because Fever's got Bossa Nova on it, and so
so good.
Bossa Nova is my favorite. I think Bossa Nova is probably my favorite Rhythm Heaven game overall. It's so good. And it's interesting when I look at sort of, because Rhythm Heaven's been around for a while now, but it's not a series that has like a lot of entries. And each one is genuinely really different. I think that that's yet another piece of connective tissue between Rhythm Heaven and WarioWare. WarioWare also, each entry, while it's in the same series, each entry is very different, and WarioWare's the same way. Like, I have a hard time picking my absolute favorite WarioWare game because each of them are so different and by and large, very good for different reasons.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not even necessarily Rhythm Heaven. In other words, isn't a series where it's like, I love this one game and it like got worse eventually. How many series have we played where it's like eventually it lost steam or whatever? Like, that never happened to Rhythm Heaven. Like,
no,
Rhythm Heaven got better, if anything. Yeah. So it's a fun series to be a fan of. Again, Rhythm Heaven Megamix, the most accessible game. I feel like I think you and I are in agreement on that. Available on the 3DS eShop. until that eShop goes down. So that's, again, I wanted to cover it now, and I want to encourage you guys, if you've ever been interested in trying Rhythm Heaven and you have a 3DS, buy Megamix while you still can, and that'll give you a really good idea of what you're in for with the series. That would be my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So
before it's gone.
Yeah,
please.
before it breaks my heart shedding a single tear over here.
Exactly, especially after that like shadow drop, it's like, oh hey, it's out, now it's gone.
We were so hyped, and like it really, to me, that moment was like, I just had so much like hope for the future, and maybe I still do. I mean, like we said earlier, we have to stay optimistic. I would love to see the series come back, obviously, on Switch, even if it is just like an up-resed Megamix Plus or whatever. Like, I'd be happy with that. Nintendo, if anybody from Nintendo's listening, we've established Doug Bowser obviously listens to every episode. So, Doug Bowser, if you would please, throw us a little bit of a bone so we don't have to play Timing Go. Give us a little Rhythm Heaven to sate our hunger. That would be awesome. Well, Kevin, I don't want to take up your entire night. One thing I've been doing here on Keep Nintendo Weird, before we wrap up, is there anything, this is like the podcast curse, where the second you hit the record button and you stop recording, you're like, oh crap, I should have said that, So is there any like kind of final thoughts, anything that you wanted to make sure we touched on before we wrap up?
Oh man, I could talk about Rhythm Heaven all night if
Me too.
if you want, honestly.
Yeah, me too. I always like to ask that, because sometimes it's like, I don't, we're here for the passion, we're here for the love, we're here to just gush, and yeah, we could do it unfettered all night long. But, if there was anything, kind of left that you wanted to make sure was said about Rhythm Heaven, definitely wanted to give you the opportunity. But I mean, hey, maybe we just covered it. Maybe we touched all of our bases, and
oh my god, I feel like we did. But
yeah.
But
cool.
I'm just really happy that, like, even though there's no new game, like if there's no new game coming out or anything, like I'm just happy that there's still a fan base, they're vocal about it,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's my favorite part about this series, is that, like, I remember like doing some of my shirts at the Yeti and like having some Rhythm Heaven stuff out. I'm like, this is not gonna do great. But then it's like, oh, wow, there's people out there that actually like this series as much as I do. And, like people that watch like Rhythm Reanimated, and, I'm seeing so much people like, still doing parodies. They're still doing parodies of Remix 10. Like, there's so many, like, the HoloLive people, like, I guess they did a HoloLive parody of it, and, like, that's blowing up. And so, like, even without context, like, it's just, dang, people are
There's
still using
here.
Rhythmus. And like even bringing back like the talk about like fan translations and fan projects. Like, I see like some people are making custom remixes, like just adding their own sound effects over existing songs, and like there's even a program for it. Is that crazy? That's
nuts. That's nuts. I mean, how many video game series can you say this about? It's a pretty short list.
Exactly. It's like, wow, like I could make my own custom remix of this and that and all these things, and it's always like, it just fills my heart. It fills my heart, and like seeing sometimes like I go back to see like the Rhythm Heaven Reanimated, like, sometimes I'll see the comments and like that we have this one that's like pinned at the top, and it's Kota Gauchi just saying like, oh, thank you so much, and I'm just like, oh.
I mean, how cool is that? It's
wonderful. It's like they love this. Like they, when fans are vocal about what they love, and whenever creators have the chance to, respond, like it fills my heart. And I'm happy that Rhythm Heaven is one of those games that has that.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. I think that Rhythm Heaven represents everything that I want to convey with this show, and that's passion for this game and being vocally passionate. The fact that you and I can sit here and just gush for, I mean, we've been going for like almost an hour now. I mean, we can just sit here and just talk about Rhythm Heaven completely. You know, it's all about the passion, and I think that completely comes through in the community. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's just one of the most beautiful undersung Nintendo franchises that just means so much to so many people. Thank you for coming on and sharing your passion with me and everybody listening. I really appreciate it. Kevin, point folks in your direction before you wrap up. How can people kind of follow you and stay up to date with the things you're working on?
You could find me on Twitter and Instagram as Kevin Fagaragan. How do I spell that?
That's okay. The links will be in the description. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there's awesome. There's a lot of A's in there, but yeah, I'll post art. Sometimes I'll gush about Rhythm Heaven, and but mostly drawing and sharing my art or selling shirts or something artsy.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, guys, you will find links to everything Kevin Fagaragan in the episode description. Support him. Follow him. Again, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on and sharing your passion and just gushing about this series with me. I really, really appreciate it, man.
We should do this again.
So much fun.
We should do this again.
Yes, we should.
Even if it's if it's Rhythm Heaven again, like
just Rhythm Heaven Part 2. We could do this again anytime. You're welcome back anytime, Kevin. Thank you so much, everybody out there. Thank you for listening. Play Rhythm Heaven. Get Mega Mix on the 3DS while you still can. Please, please, please play this series. And look, guys, you'll find links to everything in the episode description for both Kevin, for both myself. Go out there, create what you want to create, and thank you for helping me keep Nintendo weird. Bye.
Bye-bye.